Hey guys, welcome to another analysis episode. I was actually planning to do more this week, but because of my homework and all my assignments due this weekend, I will not be making any more this week. Next week, I'm planning to do some Aphelios showcases, hopefully, if I can get any games for that. So, without further ado, let's get into the game, which is going to be between Mr. Jordan from episode 1 and someone named Love Her So Much, which this was a tournament game, but I don't actually know this player. So this is between Ezreal Teemo, which is essentially a Foundry deck. So you can compare it to Sejuani as Teemo, except without the Sejuani, because Sejuani was pretty slow anyway. So he decided he may as well put Ezreal in it. It has a lot of Frostbites, of course, first, and then there's the very normal Zoe Lee. They happen to have Spell Thieves, but overall it's a pretty normal deck. So in this mulligan, he's very scared of turn 1 Zoe, so he actually full mulligans for Thermo Beam and Teemo to block Zoe. He did not get them, and our opponent did have the Zoe, so they do get the free super cool start chart. There's no plays here, so of course he just passes. Now in this position, our opponent plays Mentor, and then we play Puffcat Peddler. So now we do get, block the Mentor, and now we have to Brittle Steel to save 3 damage. Because this deck is a very slow win condition, and it has no ways to heal, while the opponent's deck has several elusives, leveled up Lee Sin. Even if you have Frostbites, they don't have to go for very high attack Lee Sins. They can just keep attacking with it over and over, and if you frostbite it, they can put their buffs after. So overall, they have a lot of ways to get chip damage, and it's almost burn. The elusive damage is almost like burn. We can reduce it, but obviously we have a finite amount of ways to reduce their attack, since we are paying mana and cards just to save health rather than killing their units, so they can keep ramping up the amount of resources we require to save health. So right now, paying Brittle Steel for 3 health is quite good. And the super cool start chart doesn't actually matter much because they would have overdrawn a card anyway. So now, of course, he wants to get Foundry out as soon as possible. They have no landmark removal. They have plenty of cards, so playing Foundry out as soon as possible is very good, since our curve is very low, so we want to be able to draw cards more than they want to draw cards, since they're going to have cards anyway, while we don't. So we want to play, we want to start drawing cards right away. And now, our opponent did play, sorry, I forgot to mention it, but our opponent played Equinox on our Peddler, and since it was silenced, it was just a free attack now, and so we got 3 free face damage. It's not too big of a deal. So now in this position, actually, this is a very complicated turn. So we have 8 mana, and they have potentially either a 3/4 Sparklefly or a 5/5 Zoe. Because we most likely want to kill the Zoe, we do probably want to have 5 mana Thermo Beam available. Ezreal isn't going to be able to block anything, and Iceveil Archer can just get overturned, because even if you Frostbite the Zoe, they're just going to buff it after during the attack. So it doesn't really matter if you Iceveil Archer. It does block 3 damage, but getting the Peddler out and getting some shrooms in is also very beneficial. And in this position, of course, he should... So this was before the Pale Cascade nerf. He should obviously block with the Silenced Peddler. There's no reason to subject our current Peddler to danger, even if we have Troll Chant up. And also, another thing is, let's say we were to end up Troll Chanting, because... Okay, so this only works because we know, for example, that he has... If he Pale Cascades, it wouldn't have worked. But the thing is... Okay, I guess it doesn't matter, because we know that they buffed the Sparklefly and not the Zoe. So we're okay with using the Troll Chant. But overall, there's not much reason to want to use the Troll Chant now, anyway, because it's going to be useful later, whether it's to save our Ezreal from elusives or to, etc. But you can consider it as Troll Chant bait, so it's not actually that bad. Overall, I still prefer blocking with the silenced one, but it's not really a problem. Now here in this position, so opponent playing Lee Sin Zoe has very few ways to actually directly remove Ezreal. The only way they can is using Lee Sin, and we have a lot of Frostbites. So right now, Ezreal will probably stick for a long time. And we do have a second Ezreal as backup. So now we have 3 Troll Chants, 2 Harsh Winds, and a Thermal Beam. Now, there's no units in this in our hands, so we want to be able to find a way to actually turn this into something that, you know, can actually keep their board down for long enough for Foundry to give us the resources we need. Additionally, the thing is that the Harsh Winds is pretty much our main way to mitigate damage later on once they get bigger Lee Sins or Sparkle Flies. And the thing is, we're not, if we have all of them now, we're gonna have to play some of the cards now. And so if we, for example, we do need to manage our resources very wisely here. Now, we of course go for the Troll Chant, opting to try to save Ezreal, as well as denying the super cool star chart in this position. And now our opponent actually plays, I believe, Hush on the Ezreal. And this triggers the barrier on the Lee Sin. What this means is that they cannot get barrier on Lee Sin a second time, which gives us 2 options. We have the option to either save the Ezreal again using either Troll Chant or Harsh Winds, or to trade Ezreal to allow us to Thermal Beam the Lee Sin. One of the main criteria for this is that, there's quite a few criteria. First of all, we have a second Ezreal, so it's not the worst thing in the world. Second of all, their Lee Sin is a much bigger threat to us than the upside of keeping Ezreal. And that's why we go for this Thermal Beam here. It's really important to be able to kill Lee Sins. Well, obviously they're gonna have another Lee Sin eventually, and we probably won't be able to kill it. But this does save us a lot of resources in the meantime, and gives us a lot more time to be able to stall the game and try to find one of our ways to win. Saving the Ezreal won't actually accelerate our win condition. It just means that we basically save 3 mana. Whereas killing Lee Sin does give us several turns at least, basically. So now in this position, we have two options. We could use 2 Troll Chants to save the Peddler, or we can play Ezreal. Using 2 Troll Chants to save the Peddler is not very productive for, well, several reasons. First of all, Troll Chants are very good defensively. It lets us actually, it's going to be able to save units better later as well. It's going to deny damage, which, as I mentioned before, preserving our hit points is very critical, because we need to be able to drag this out as long as we can for us to, you know, whether it's winning by Ezreal, Foundry, or Puff Caps. Because the thing is, we're going to need to get them low on cards so that our Puff Caps do a lot of damage within very few rounds. Otherwise, they're going to most likely heal it up if our Puff Caps are only dealing 2 to 3 damage per round, whether it's from our Nexus or otherwise. So they have quite some threats. Their main way of killing us is obviously going face, so we need to mitigate as much as possible. And right now with this hand, we have the ability to do that. However, that only applies so far as they don't have way more units than us. Because if they have, for example, 6 units and we block only 2 or 3, then we're gonna only be able to do this one round. It's not a very sustainable plan. And now in this position, this is actually a pretty critical decision. So we have a second Ezreal in our hand, or rather a third Ezreal. This is our last Ezreal in our hand in order to counter the Zoe. However, it is of critical note that our opponent runs Nobifies. We've helped them draw a ton of cards, and so they're very likely to draw it. And also, Nobify is very, very low value in this matchup. There's almost nothing for them to actually use Nobify on. So we essentially are gambling on the fact that they don't have Nobify, first of all, which is a very low probability, and assuming that they do, there's absolutely no reason to do this, because it's not like we're allowing other cards to go through. It's not like we're running Get Excited that we're trying to activate later on. So trading this Ezreal for a Nobify is a pretty terrible value long term, since Nobify was a dead card and Ezreal was not. The thing is, right, our Ezreal might die, and so there's no reason to really put him to give up the guaranteed last one, because it's very difficult for our opponent to kill our Ezreals. So what that means is that having a second one in hand basically means you're always going to have Ezreal for the rest of the game almost. The only possible way they can even try to kill Ezreal is Lee Sin. And at most, they can only attack with Lee Sin once every 2 rounds. And with our Frostbites, it's very unlikely that they will even be able to kill Ezreal with only 1 attack token. So basically, by giving up an Ezreal for free, we're losing several rounds of Ezreals, assuming that it happens. Now, in this position, we have the option of using Troll Chant to save 3 health on the Ezreal. For the reasons listed above, I quite like it. Troll Chant later on to save our units is not really going to work because, well, it's most likely not going to be as effective. So another reason is because saving the spell mana isn't that effective. We don't have that much to do next round anyway, and it's not like we're gonna use Troll Chant just to give Ezreal 2 health. If we're gonna do that, why not give him 3 health instead? Of course, we do like having Troll Chants as ways to block 2 damage, but we can also use Ezreal for that. So keeping our Ezreal healthy is something that I rather prefer. However, the main reason Jordan most likely didn't want to use the Troll Chant is because, well, for one, as mentioned before, Troll Chant can be used to reduce their damage by 2. And the second reason is because they don't have an interaction. So he's probably thinking along the lines of either they're going to deal 4 damage to my Ezreal, or they're not going to deal any damage to Ezreal. However, I mean, it does also deal 2 face damage, and it does make it actually very threatening because every spell we play is going to essentially deal 2 face damage, and our deck is mostly spells. And of course, also, we have a lot of Frostbite, so that even with their lifesteal units, it's not going to be that threatening. At least that's the idea, because we basically have multiple rounds. Now, again, this Mystic Shot could work. Whether or not it's good is, I mean, there's not much reason not to in this position, because right now, first of all, this one is not an Ezreal Mystic Shot. Also, the Mystic Shots are no longer very valuable. Even if we think that he might have a second Notify, that just means that this Mystic Shot will never go through. The main reason the last one was valuable was because it was an Ezreal. This one, I mean, it's now or never, basically. Mystic Shot isn't going to get any better, so may as well just do it now, and maybe if we're lucky, we'll also deny the Zenith Blade. Alternatively, from another perspective, perhaps the Zenith, we should... Oh, never mind, that was the last Zenith Blade. Wait, no, it wasn't Daybreak. Okay, so I was gonna mention that maybe we allow them to draw cards, but it doesn't actually draw any cards. So in this position, we are spending 6 mana on a Thermal Beam, and I mean, if we use the Troll Chant last round, then this Thermal Beam wouldn't kill the Zoe. However, we probably would just not Mystic Shot instead. It would be the same thing. And it so happens that now, since our Ezreal is no more, we have no Ezreals left. We only a 1 health Ezreal. They actually managed to kill our Ezreal with a Spell Thief. And now we have no Ezreals left, which means our methods of winning have gone down from essentially 3 to 1.5. Since Puff Caps and them decking out pretty much go hand in hand, that's why I'm counting it as 1.5. Since if they're low on cards, Puff Caps, you may as well not win off of Puff Caps. So in this position, it is of important note that our opponent has 10 cards left in their deck. What this means is that if let's say we take 2 or 3 damage, or even 4 damage from this attack token and go down to 9, or even 5 damage, let's say we go down to 8. What that means is that with 10 cards in their deck, they can at most attack 2 more times at the very, very limit. Most likely, they won't even be able to survive to get a second attack token after this. So as long as we survive essentially this attack token and the next attack token, it is very likely that Foundries will win. So all that matters is, again, minimizing the damage, because so right now, all other factors aside, our opponent has a 0, at most 1 Zoe. I'm pretty sure they have 0, maybe, but they might have 1 Zoe. 1 Zoe is not enough to reshuffle. they have one more Lee Sin, so they can reshuffle Lee Sins, and at most they can play one Lee Sin per round. So assuming, for example, they play one Lee Sin this round, one Lee Sin next round, so one Lee Sin the round after that, then they'll be able to survive for the second attack token. So the only conceivable way they can survive and make the attack token, make it to the second attack token after this, is for Lee Sin for them to play Lee Sin every single round, which is not that likely because it has to shuffle to the top. So again, at this point, when you see that your opponent has 10 cards, and essentially one attack token left after this, focus on absolutely minimizing the damage from these two attack tokens, because that's basically a guaranteed win. And this hand allows us to do that. Now he goes down to 9, again, further guaranteeing. Oh, well, maybe guaranteeing isn't exactly the right word, but we do have our third Veteran Investigator, which pretty much locks in the fact that our opponent only has one attack token left. So this is a perfectly fine flash freeze because, again, it's 3 mana to deny 4 damage and forces them to use the Hush. The troll chance wouldn't make a difference. So now, one way to look at this is that if we can't kill them through Mill, we can kill them through Mushrooms because they have no cards in their deck. So even if they draw all their cards, but they have enough for their attack token, that also means they're going to draw every Mushroom. So that combined with the fact that we have essentially no cards, we don't have any proactive way to spend our mana on our attack token, we may as well play out the Peddler and see what happens with that. It is of critical importance that our opponent's only way of dealing damage is with the attack token. So in this position, our opponent currently has 6 cards in hand. As mentioned before, last turn they played Guiding Touch from 10 cards and drew 3 cards this round. So now with 6 cards, assuming they play Lee Sin every single round, they will still not be able to get their second attack token, because I'll just simulate it for you, for example. So let's say they place Lee Sin this round, they go up to 7 cards. Next round they draw 3 to 4 cards, and they play Lee Sin again and go up to 5 cards. And then basically what happens is that after that they draw 3, and even if they play Lee Sin, they'll be at 0 cards. Actually, wait, technically they can't. If they play Lee Sin every round, they won't automatically die to fatigue. However, that's excluding the Veteran Investigator that we know we have. So essentially, even if he has the maximum number of shuffles possible with the perfect draws to allow it, we still have a way to guarantee that next round is his absolute last attack token, which we know we can survive. So at this point, as long as the eye does not show lethal, you can click pass. Is basically how you should interpret this situation. Because you know there's 0 risk. It is mathematically impossible for our opponent to win if his attack token is not lethal. So if the eye shows that we are alive, we do not have to play any cards whatsoever. So here, it actually makes more sense to just Harsh Winds the Sparklefly and the Lee Sin, because that is 6 mana to block the most amount of damage. So here, as I said, because Harsh Winds shows us surviving, then we should just press OK. Actually, no, wait, hold on. It's okay to... Yeah, no, we should Harsh Winds the Lee Sin and the Sparklefly. So in this position, while it is absolutely guaranteed that we live, unless I'm doing the math wrong, I mean, we could Troll Chant. Troll Chant will save 2 damage whether we play it now or later, so it's about the same. And although you could press OK, as long as you press OK, you basically win the game. We also know that if our opponent were to pull a miracle and cheat somehow, they had another attack token, we would most probably die from it because we used all our harsh winds and flash freezes, as far as I'm aware. And also, we would actually die to the fatigue if he had another attack token. In that case, it might be a draw. I didn't count, but okay. So we're at 7 cards, and our opponent is at 5 cards. Given this knowledge, combined with the veteran investigator, we know we couldn't play Foundry this round, and that's because if we played Foundry, then we would draw 4 cards the next round and 4 cards the round after that, and it would actually be a draw because both players would die to fatigue on the same round. Well, from the same circumstance, which is the start of the round and drawing from Foundries. So here he had to delay the Foundry, and so right now with 2 Foundries and 3 cards per round, plus the veteran investigator, this means that he would have exactly 0 cards, assuming that he needs to play the investigator. Which means he survives fatigue. If he were to have 6 cards, he would actually not be able to play the veteran investigator, and the assumption that our opponent plays Lee Sin every round would actually kill them. I mean, would actually kill us. Wait, no, it would be a draw. Sorry. So in this position, again, our opponent has less than 3 cards in their deck, so you don't have to do anything. Even if they play Lee Sin here, you could just play Veteran Investigator and it would be a win. Because there are 2 cards. Lee Sin brings them to 3, and Veteran Investigator brings it back down to 2. While we would have 3 cards in our deck, and therefore it would be fine. Alternatively, another thing is, if our opponent were to somehow shuffle more cards into the deck, let's say our opponent had 4 cards right now, what we would do would be to play our Chump-Wumps and their Shrooms, because each Mushroom Cloud is essentially 5 damage, because we know our opponent's going to draw every card. So if we were to play all 4 Mushroom Clouds, it would basically be, again, guaranteed lethal, assuming that they weren't dying to fatigue as well. So by minimizing the amount of damage he took this round, this game, he would have won whether it's Shrooms or Fatigue. Both were valid win cons. And, I mean, fun fact, Mr. Katasis actually said in the chat that he would have still played the Mushrooms just for BM this round. Which is pretty tempting. If I'm gonna be honest, playing the Mushrooms just for value is pretty tempting, because if you know me, you know that I love putting Mushrooms in my opponent's decks. But alas, here he wins. He takes the guaranteed way out and takes the... Well, actually, Shrooms are also guaranteed, but still. He does take the Fatigue win. Now, the thing is, while he had multiple guaranteed wins, it is important to notice that the main part I want to point out is that you should be aware 4 or 5 rounds in advance in that position that your opponent only has 1 more attack token, so that you should already be playing with the assumption that you're going to win as long as you survive these 2 attack tokens. So which obviously with Jordan's hand was fully guaranteeable, basically. And so he did, but a lot of people don't really plan that far ahead, and that's mostly what I wanted to show. But there was also other critical moments, like saving the Ezreal, keeping the Ezreal healthy. Well, actually, saving the first Ezreal. Wait, no. Saving the 3rd Ezreal by not playing the Ezreal's Mystic Shot, and then keeping the 2nd Ezreal healthy by playing Troll Chant. And aside from that, just understand the matchups, understand your priorities, preserve your Nexus health if you need to be grindy, and you don't have ways to heal your Nexus at all. And so minimize the amount of damage you take, and then eventually you'll find what you need to actually win the game. And in this position, it was Foundry. Now, maybe you won't always find what you need to win the game if your deck doesn't have the necessary outs, but in this position, he did. And it was actually very important that we killed the Lee Sin here, because while he might still have won, it did significantly reduce the amount of pressure he was under. So trading the Ezreal for the Lee Sin was very, very good. Anyways, I hope you found this game interesting. I thought it was interesting just to share, because you don't often see wins by mill, especially against Lee Sin Zoe, especially with absolutely no healing in your deck. You also don't happen to see games where you don't actually win by doing anything except playing Foundry and surviving. And also, importantly, you don't see decks being able to survive and minimize the amount of damage they take from Lee Sin Zoe by so much when they have, especially when they drew so well. They had everything they needed. Granted, Foundry did help them and ensure that they would continue drawing well. They had the Zoe, they had the Sparklefly, they had the Mentors, they had the Lee Sins, and everything they had, but we just had all the Frostbites, all the Troll Chants, and he maximized their usage. So I hope this was informative. I will see you guys next week. Consider sharing and subscribing, or leave a comment. And have fun.